They laughed when I got fired. Then I started my own company and hired their boss. I remember the exact moment I knew something was off. It was 9:03 a.m., and the usual hum of keyboards and forced small talk filled the open space office of Leadbright. But as I walked in that morning, coffee in hand, I felt it, that charged silence. People pretend isn't there when they know something you don't. Leadbright's headquarters looked like every other tech-forward digital marketing agency trying too hard to seem like a Silicon Valley startup. Minimalist furniture, exposed brick, neon motivational signs that read things like "Crush it" and "Disrupt or Die." And yet, under all that shine, there was rot. I worked in the growth strategy team. Supposedly. Lately, though, it felt more like I was the team mascot than a member. Projects passed me by, decisions were made in meetings I wasn't invited to, and the air around my desk had grown cold, like people were subconsciously keeping their distance. Jared, of course, was warm as ever. Too warm. "Travis, my man," he said with that phony cheer, clapping me on the back as I passed his desk. "You ready to crush this quarter? I saw the numbers from the last campaign. Not bad, buddy. Not bad at all. Buddy." Jared was the kind of guy who called everyone buddy while making sure your name never appeared on anything that actually mattered. He wore tight blazers and that smug smirk like armor. I once saw him take credit for a junior designer's pitch in real time. Didn't even flinch. I nodded politely and kept walking. I sat down and opened my email. That's when I saw it. Subject: meeting with Mr. Crane, 9:15 a.m. from HR. No context. Just a calendar invite and a sinking feeling in my stomach. I stared at the screen. I'd just wrapped up a campaign that had brought in a 12% conversion lift, our highest in Q2. I stayed late, fixed copy at midnight, fought off a sinus infection to meet the launch deadline. And yet, this. 9:14 a.m. I stood up and made the walk of shame past rows of sleek desks and underdressed 20-somethings who pretended not to notice. But I saw it, the glances, the lips tightening to suppress knowing smiles. Mr. Crane's office was all glass, transparent but impenetrable, like him. "Come in, Travis," he said without looking up from his desk. He gestured toward the chair in front of him like I was an intern he barely remembered hiring. "I'll keep this brief," he said. "There have been concerns about your output. Frankly, the numbers aren't aligning with expectations. We've decided to move in a different direction." "Excuse me?" I blinked. "I just finished the Steel River launch. It outperformed projections." Mr. Crane finally looked up, eyes blank and dry as printer paper. "That was a team effort. And frankly, Jared has been more aligned with our forward strategy." Of course he has. There was no point in arguing. This had been decided long before I walked into that glass cage. Maybe even weeks ago. Probably right after I'd pushed back on Jared's influencer-only rebranding strategy that would have tanked the Steel River account if I hadn't rewritten the messaging behind his back. My jaw clenched, but I kept my tone calm. "So what now? You'll be given a severance package, 1 month, standard. HR will walk you through the exit procedure." That was it, just like that. 7 years erased in 7 minutes. I walked out of his office in a daze, numb, trying not to look at anyone as I grabbed my bag. But I couldn't help overhearing the voices coming from the break room. "Guess he's finally gonna sell those weird coffee mugs he kept drawing during lunch." Laughter. Jared's voice was unmistakable. "Hey, maybe he'll open a little Etsy shop. Sad Guy Ceramics. I'd buy one just to say I knew him before he went broke." More laughter. I didn't say a word. I didn't throw anything, didn't slam a door. I just walked out, shoulders square, head high. But inside, I was burning. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I said it, out loud, to no one but myself. The floor of my apartment had become my office, dining room, and therapist's couch all in one. I sat cross-legged in yesterday's hoodie, surrounded by unopened bills and a half-eaten bag of stale cereal. The fridge was empty except for a bottle of mustard and an expired carton of almond milk. My job was gone, my future was a question mark, and now, Laura was gone too. She hadn't slammed the door, she wasn't the dramatic type, she just walked out. "You're spiraling, Travis," she had said the night before, standing near the door with her coat already on. "I need someone with a plan, not someone waiting for the universe to throw him a rope." She didn't mean it cruelly. Laura wasn't cruel. She was beautiful, intelligent, and practical, painfully so. She loved well-made furniture, strong coffee, and spreadsheets. But she didn't love chaos. And right now, I was chaos. I hadn't fought her on it. I didn't have the strength. Now the apartment echoed with her absence. No plants, no playlists. No "hey babe" from the kitchen while she made quinoa bowls. Just the buzz of my laptop and the distant sound of someone arguing with Alexa through the thin walls. I checked my inbox, again, another rejection. A startup I'd interviewed with had sent a 2-line email: "We've decided to move forward with other candidates. Best of luck in your search." Best of luck. Right. I leaned back against the wall and stared at the cracked ceiling. I'd gone from running multi-million-dollar ad campaigns to sitting on the floor, Googling freelance gigs with no experience. I reached for my laptop to shut it, but it slipped from my lap. The edge caught the corner of the coffee table. Crack. The screen went black. I froze, blinking. No, no, no. I picked it up. The hinge was busted. A hairline fracture ran diagonally across the display. It flickered once, then nothing. That was it. My last tool, my last window into the world. Gone. I wanted to scream, or punch something, or just disappear. Instead, I sat there in the dark, my knees pulled up to my chest like a kid. My breath caught in my throat. It felt like the end. My phone buzzed. I thought about ignoring it, but the screen lit up with a name I hadn't seen in a while. Mom. I hesitated, then answered. "Hi, sweetheart." Her voice was warm, soft, the kind of voice that could talk you down from a cliff. "How are you holding up?" I didn't answer right away. She must have heard the weight in my silence, because she added gently, "You've always been the most inventive of the bunch. Remember when you sold hand-drawn menus to your teachers in 5th grade? I let out a soft, tired laugh. "You'll figure this out," she said. "I know you will. You just need to stop waiting for someone to hand you a door and build your own damn window." I nodded, though she couldn't see it. "Thanks, Mom." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet for a long time. I don't know what sparked it. Maybe it was her words. Maybe it was the cracked laptop staring at me like a dead fish. But my mind drifted back to something. An idea I had pitched in passing once during a meeting at Leadbright. It was a dumb moment. I'd been drinking too much coffee, trying to stay awake during a brainstorming session. I blurted it out. What if we had an AI that acted like a full-service marketing team for small businesses? One that could learn tone, adjust campaigns, write copy, place ads, all automated, all smart? They laughed. "Cool, Travis," Jared had smirked. "You should pitch that to Shark Tank, right after your mug business." But I hadn't forgotten it. Not really. I got up and rummaged through a drawer for paper, an old notepad, a pen that barely worked. I sat back down on the floor, cross-legged again, and started sketching. A paper airplane, simple, fast, directed. I wrote the name underneath it in shaky block letters, Snap-Pilot. It wasn't much, just a sketch. But it was the first thing in days that didn't feel like a loss. You don't realize how much pride weighs until you have to swallow it. 2 weeks after drawing the Snap-Pilot logo, I was dragging my suitcase into my parents' basement like a college dropout who'd flunked out of life. Mom hugged me tight at the door. Dad nodded from the couch and muttered, "There's space next to the water heater, home sweet headquarters." The basement smelled faintly of old books and dryer sheets. A single window let in just enough light to remind you it was always either too early or too late. My desk was a folding table wedged between a pile of Christmas decorations and an elliptical machine no one had touched since Obama's first term. But it was mine. During the day I delivered food on a beat-up bike. Grubdash, Bitesly, whatever app paid fastest. I'd ride around town in the same hoodie, dodging traffic and praying for tips that weren't just nickels. By night, I collapsed into the basement chair with aching legs, a microwave burrito, and YouTube tutorials titled, "Learn to Code in 24 Hours." I had no tech background. Marketing? Sure. Project management? A bit. But Python? JavaScript? APIs? Foreign language. Still, every night I chipped away at it. Snap-Pilot wasn't going to build itself. Some nights the frustration got to me. My code wouldn't compile. The interface looked like it had been drawn by a raccoon. I'd slam my hand on the table and nearly knock over the Christmas angel that sat ominously close. "You're yelling at a for loop," I muttered one night. "Congratulations, Travis." I was halfway through another poorly written blog post about AI automation when a notification popped up from Fiverr. I'd created a profile weeks earlier with no expectations. Just tossed up a gig, simple landing pages for small businesses, and forgot about it. "Hey, are you available for a quick job? Need a basic homepage for my catering service. Nothing fancy." My heart jumped. I replied immediately. We chatted for a bit. He needed it by the weekend. $80. It might as well have been $8,000. I worked through the night, fueled by instant coffee and the kind of manic energy that only comes from desperation, and just a hint of hope. I triple-checked every link, polished the color scheme, even added a basic contact form just to make it feel pro. When I sent the final draft, I expected nitpicks, maybe a rejection. Instead, he replied within minutes. "Perfect. Thanks, man." He left a 5-star review. I stared at the screen, stunned. $80 for something I built with my own hands. Well, with my keyboard and a whole lot of Googling. But still, I did it. I could do it again. That night, I opened the SnapPilot sketch again. I started laying down the real framework, a front end, a basic dashboard, a mocked-up automation sequence that could plug into ad platforms. It was ugly. It crashed. A lot. I accidentally broke it trying to make the font look cooler, but it was alive. Between deliveries, I'd scribble UI ideas on napkins. I watched tutorials while waiting for takeout orders. I taught myself how to integrate APIs in between dropping off vegan tacos and overpriced smoothies. Mom would peek downstairs sometimes with snacks and soft encouragement. "Need more Hot Pockets, Mr. CEO?" I'd just smile. "Call me CTO for now." The cold basement started feeling less like a failure and more like a launch pad. I even found my old high school soccer trophies shoved behind the boxes. Holding one of them, I remembered how it felt to win something everyone thought you'd lose. The smell of dust and nostalgia wrapped around me like armor. This wasn't just survival anymore, this was the beginning of something real. The first time I saw Marco again, he was sitting alone in a corner booth at Cafe Mono, hunched over a laptop covered in anime stickers, looking like he hadn't slept in 2 days. Classic Marco. We hadn't spoken since he stormed out of Leadbright a year ago after a shouting match with Jared over stolen code. Jared got a raise. Marco got escorted out by security. Corporate justice. "I heard you got canned," he said without looking up from his screen. "And I heard you joined a doomsday cult that codes in basements," I shot back. He cracked a grin. "Touché. We talked for an hour. Maybe 2. I told him about SnapPilot, the Fiverr gig, the nights in the basement learning to code from zero. He didn't laugh, he didn't scoff. He leaned back, crossed his arms and said, "I'm in. Wait, seriously? I've been building dead-end apps for contractors who can't spell JavaScript. I want in on something that actually matters. If this thing helps small businesses automate marketing, that's huge. You need a CO founder. I need a reason to wake up before noon. Let's go." We didn't shake hands, just opened our laptops and started building. Marco was a genius, a little weird, a little twitchy, but brilliant. The kind of guy who could build a back-end system in a weekend and forget to eat for 3 days straight. He didn't want salary. "I'll take equity," he said. "If we crash and burn, at least I won't owe you rent." We moved operations from my parents' basement to Marco's garage. Slightly less depressing. Slightly more likely to burn down from overloaded power strips. For weeks, we lived on gas station coffee, frozen burritos and Wi-Fi from Marco's neighbor, who never changed his password. Days blurred into nights. We argued about UI color schemes, debated server structures, and high-fived over working code like it was a lottery win. Then came our first pitch. A barbershop in town, sharp-looking place run by a guy named Darnell. Marco had found them through a Reddit thread asking for affordable marketing help. I emailed, offered a free consultation, and somehow, miraculously, Darnell agreed to meet. I wore my cleanest hoodie. The 3 of us sat in a tiny break room that smelled like pomade and aftershave. I pulled out my battered laptop and walked him through what SnapPilot could do: automated social media posts, targeted ads based on customer check-ins, review tracking, email drip campaigns, all simplified into one dashboard. Darnell nodded slowly. "How much?" I hesitated. We hadn't even talked pricing. I threw out a number. "Low, too low. Can you do it for $250? "I can't do more right now." Marco looked at me. I nodded. "We'll do it," I said. "And if you like it, all I ask is a testimonial and permission to use your shop as a case study." He agreed. That weekend we pulled the first real client version of SnapPilot together with duct tape and prayers. But it worked. The barbershop's Instagram started posting like clockwork. Review requests went out after each appointment. A simple ad campaign brought in 15 new clients that month. Darnell called it black magic. He gave us a glowing testimonial and let us shoot a quick video in the shop. That testimonial changed everything. I posted it on our Barely There website, on LinkedIn, in small business forums. Suddenly we weren't just two guys hacking in a garage anymore. We were a company. That night, I walked back into Marco's garage with a bag of dollar store champagne and 2 crumpled plastic cups. Marco took a sip and grimaced. "Tastes like hairspray." I held up my cup anyway. "To snap pilot?" He hesitated and clinked his cup against mine. "To the beginning. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was pretending. I felt like I was finally building something real. Success, it turns out, doesn't silence doubt, it attracts more of it. Even after landing our 10th client, even after our analytics beta started to spit out real insights, even after Marco built a dashboard so clean it looked like Apple had designed it in their sleep, the doubt still came. Mostly from people who meant well. "Maybe you should start thinking about something more stable," my mom said over dinner, gently pushing a plate of lasagna across the table. "Just until this thing takes off." I smiled and nodded, like I always did, but I saw the way she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Like she was trying to figure out how her bright creative son ended up living in a hoodie and working in a garage. My dad wasn't much better. "If you're ever ready to go back to real work," he said one night, "Roger from the insurance firm is still hiring." Real work. The word stung more than I wanted to admit, but nothing, absolutely nothing, hit harder than Jared's post. It popped up on my LinkedIn feed one evening while I was uploading testimonials to our site. The header read, "From C-suite to basement, why startup culture is just adult make-believe." The photo was a smug shot of Jared at a company brunch, mimosa in hand. The caption was even worse. "Just watched another founder I used to work with launch a website. No product market fit, no funding, no clue. But hey, at least his mom's basement has good Wi-Fi." I knew he was talking about me. He didn't even have to say my name. Marco read it over my shoulder. He's just scared. Of what? Of being replaced by people who give a damn. I wanted to punch something. Or someone. Instead, I opened up our roadmap and worked until my eyes burned. We launched the analytics module the next morning. It was basic, mostly visual heat maps and click-through tracking for small business campaigns, but it worked. Our barbershop client loved it. So did the neighborhood gym that had just signed up. Suddenly we were giving real data to owners who had never even heard the term conversion funnel. The praise came in slowly, but when it did, it landed like gold. This helped me understand where my customers actually came from. I've been guessing for years. Now I can actually see what's working. Feels like I hired a marketing team, without the payroll. That same week, we got invited to present at a local startup showcase, one of those weekend expos where small companies pitch to investors, tech journalists, and startup nerds, hopped up on free espresso. Marco nearly backed out. "I hate people. What if they ask questions?" "Then we answer them," I said, "and if we don't know the answer we tell them we're building toward it." He stared at me for a long second, then sighed. "Fine. But I'm not wearing a suit." We spent the next 2 nights rehearsing our demo and tweaking every line of code until it ran like butter. I printed out flyers at a 24-hour copy center, and borrowed a collapsible table from my parents' garage. The night before the event I sat alone at Marco's kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee and stared at our logo, still sketched out by hand, still imperfect, and smiled. Jared was wrong. This wasn't make-believe. It was scrappy. It was risky. It was held together with stubbornness and caffeine. But it was real, and we were just getting started. It started with cinnamon rolls. One of our early clients, a tiny bakery run by a grandmother-granddaughter duo, posted a video on TikTok. Just 20 seconds of warm, gooey cinnamon rolls getting pulled from the oven, steam curling into the air. The caption read, "We asked our new AI marketing thingy which photo to post. It picked this. We sold out in an hour. THX and Snapilot." By lunchtime it had over 300,000 views. By dinner we were trending. By midnight our website crashed. Marco was asleep when I called. "Dude," I said, pacing the basement floor. "The site's down. We're getting like thousands of hits. What do we do?" There was a pause. We spent the next 3 hours on a Discord call, patching the server and spinning up more bandwidth on a temporary host Marco knew about from some Reddit forum. He was typing so fast I thought his keyboard might catch fire. By 3 a.m. the site was back. Our inbox had over 100 emails. By Friday we had 100 new small businesses signed up for free trials. And then the investors started circling. It began with a cold LinkedIn message from a guy named Alex who used to work at Twitter. Saw what you're doing with SnapPilot. Impressive traction. You raising? Then came a DM from a startup scout at Sequoia. A former Shark Tank contestant asked for a Zoom. I wasn't ready. Not for pitches, not for cap tables, not for burn rate questions. I still had peanut butter and jelly in my fridge and a whiteboard with fix button on FAQ page scribbled across it. But we said yes anyway. Because we knew the wave was real. And we weren't going to miss it. We took a tiny bit of the early revenue and rented a corner in a co-working space downtown. Exposed brick walls, bad coffee and whiteboards as far as the eye could see. It smelled like ambition and leftover pizza. Marco hated it. Too many people. Too much noise. Good, I told him, plugging in my laptop. That means we're growing. And then there was Ashley. She was our first hire. A former office manager from a failed crypto startup who could organize chaos like it was a competitive sport. I found her on a Slack group for women in tech. She had an emoji in her username and a resume that made me feel like I'd been playing checkers in a chess tournament. So, she said during our Zoom call, what exactly do you need me to do? Everything, I said. Emails, scheduling, making sure Marco eats something besides Doritos. She grinned. Perfect. Hiring Ashley felt like leveling up in a game we didn't know we were playing. Suddenly, we had color-coded calendars. Clients got replies within hours instead of days. Our meetings started with agendas instead of wait. What were we talking about again? And for the first time since I'd sketched SnapPilot on a crumpled napkin, I felt like we weren't just pretending. We were a real company. Real product. Real users. Real momentum. At the end of our first week in the co-working space, I stayed late. The floor mostly empty, Marco already gone, Ashley's sticky notes still stuck to her monitor. I looked around at the whiteboards, the messy desks, the energy still humming in the air. Then I opened LinkedIn. Jared had just posted another photo of him at some bland corporate panel, talking about leading with synergy or whatever buzzword he was recycling that day. I smiled, closed the tab and opened our dashboard. There were 20 new signups, and tomorrow, who knew? I was staring at my phone when the message popped up. Jared, hey Travis, can we grab coffee? I'd like to discuss some opportunities. I blinked. Jared, the guy who laughed at me the day I got fired. The same Jared who mocked my weird coffee mugs idea while whispering with his little click. I almost deleted it. Almost. Instead, I opened LinkedIn and started digging. Leadbright was in trouble. Their latest round of layoffs had hit hard. Dozens of people, including Mr. Crane, were out. I double-checked the news feed and internal chatter on Glassdoor. The corporate titan was history. I stared at Jared's message again. Was this some sick joke? A trap? Or something else? For a day I ignored it. Then, out of nowhere, my phone rang. The caller ID said, Mr. Crane. My heart skipped a beat. Travis, it's been a while. His voice was dry, clipped. Different from the cold boss I knew. Softer somehow, like a man who'd been forced to swallow some tough pills. I've been hearing a lot about SnapPilot. Interesting project? I said nothing for a moment, letting the silence hang between us. Look, he said, things at Leadbright. They're changing. Without you. But maybe that's not the end for either of us. He cleared his throat. I'd like to meet. Talk about a possible collaboration. I blinked, fingers hovering over the screen. Sure, I said finally. Let's talk. It was the first time since the firing that I felt the balance shifting. The guy who once held the power was reaching out to me. And I wasn't sure if I should laugh or lean in. But one thing was clear. This coffee wasn't just a drink. It was a chess move. The door to our modest SnapPilot office opened, and in walked Mr. Crane, the very symbol of the corporate world that once crushed me. He wore a crisp, charcoal gray suit, perfectly pressed. His silver hair was neatly combed back. Yet despite the impeccable look, there was something off. A flicker of uncertainty in his eyes, a slight hesitation in his step. I shook his hand firmly, keeping my expression neutral, professional. Mr. Crane, I said, welcome to SnapPilot. He gave a small nod, but it was clear he wasn't used to being on this side of the table. I led him to a seat while my assistant Ashley brought coffee. We've been growing steadily, I continued. And now we're looking to expand our content support. Social media, blogs, newsletters. We need a contractor who understands corporate clients and can deliver quality, I watched his eyes sharpen. "Are you interested?" Mr. Crane cleared his throat. "Yes, I believe I am." The irony was thick. The man who once fired me, who'd looked down on my ideas, was now negotiating to work for my company. The deal was simple but symbolic. Leadbright would become a subcontractor for SnapPilot's content services. A week later, the contract was signed, and that's when the real twist hit. Jared, the same toxic colleague who'd sabotaged me, was now working under Mr. Crane. Indirectly, that meant he was working for me. The power dynamic had shifted completely. I smiled quietly to myself. They had laughed when I got fired. But now, I was the one holding the cards. The conference hall was packed, buzzing with the kind of energy that only a room full of industry professionals can generate. The air smelled faintly of coffee and ambition. I stepped onto the stage, heart pounding but face steady. Among the crowd, I spotted familiar faces, some from Leadbright, including Jared, who sat awkwardly near the back. Mr. Crane was there too, a quiet presence beside the new Leadbright team. And then, the unexpected, Laura. My ex. She caught my eye for a brief second, surprise flickering across her face. I cleared my throat and began. "I'm Travis. A few years ago I got fired from Leadbright. Some of you may remember that day. It wasn't pretty." They laughed. Some of those laughs came from people sitting right here, in this very room. I let that sink in. But every laugh, every whisper, every doubt, they became fuel. Fuel for something bigger than just a job. I told them about the basement apartment where I started SnapPilot, the late nights learning and failing, the clients who believed when others wouldn't. I spoke about Marco, Ashley, and the power of a dream, even when it feels impossible. The crowd was quiet, some nodding, some eyes shining with recognition. I looked Jared right in the eye. They thought they ended my story. I smiled, not with bitterness, but with pride. They laughed when I got fired. Now they laugh when I pay them, every 2 weeks. A ripple of laughter and applause followed. As I stepped down from the stage, Laura approached, this time with a soft smile. "Travis, you really did it." I nodded, feeling a strange calm. The boy who got fired had become the man who hired, and that laugh, that triumphant laugh, was mine now.